Hello and welcome to Rajya Sabha Television. You're watching a brand new edition of India's World with me, Frank Rausan Pereira. India has become the third Asian country after Japan and South Korea to get the Strategic Trade Authorization 1 status after the US issued a federal notification to this effect, paving the way for high technology product sales to New Delhi, particularly in civil space and defense sectors. India is the 37th country to be designated the STA-1 status by the United States. The federal notification issued on Friday gained significance as the Trump administration made an exception for India, which is yet to become a member of the nuclear suppliers group. Traditionally, the US has placed only those countries in the STA-1 list who are members of the four export control regimes: Missile Technology Control Regime, Wassenaar Arrangement, Australia Group and the NSG. In its federal notification, the Trump administration notes that India is a member of three of the four multilateral export regimes. Mainly because of the political opposition from China, India's membership application has been pending before NSG, which takes decision by consensus. By placing India in the STA-1 list, the United States has acknowledged that for all practical purposes, India adheres to the export control regimes of the NSG. On this edition of India's World, we will analyze what the STA-1 status by the United States means for India. Joining me on the program today are Ashok Sajjanhar, former diplomat, Nayar, strategic analyst, and Alok Bansal, director, India Foundation. Thank you to all my guests for joining me on this edition of India's World. Let me first begin with Alok Bansal. Alok Bansal, what does the strategic trade authorization status mean for India?
See, this status for India is very, very significant because this is the first country in South Asia which is getting it, and first country globally which is getting it without being a member of the NSG. Now that shows that US considers India as special ally, and it's a very, very significant thing because it allows certain equipment, certain technologies to be given to India which could not till now be given. We need to understand the significance of this, that even a country like Israel, which identifies itself from United States, still not been given this STA-1 status. So this is how significant it is, and this probably tells other countries, especially like China, which have been blocking India's membership for NSG, saying that as far as India is concerned, as far as the US is concerned, India meets all the requirements of being a member of the NSG. And I think by giving this status, US has clearly given that signal that as far as US is concerned, it considers India as part of NSG as well. Besides, of course, we are member of the other three export control regimes. And I think this will take India-US cooperation, especially in the field of defense and other strategic technologies, to a new level.
Indeed. Ambassador, as far as STA-1 status is concerned, why is it so important to us and what happens now?
You see, STA is very important to us, Frank, because now we can import a large segment, a large number of the dual-use technologies and defense technologies and also civil space. Because earlier we were required to look for licenses for each and every item. To understand this better, we need to know India was given the major defense partner status category in 2016, June 2016, yes, just before Prime Minister Modi went to the United States, just before that. And there is no such status for any other countries. It was created only for India. As far as STA is concerned, there are two categories, STA-2 and STA-1.
Yes.
So far, India was in STA-2, where there are 7 other categories. As Alok mentioned, Israel is also one of those, Singapore is also one of those, South Korea, Taiwan, Hong Kong. These are countries which are part of STA-2. And today, India is the only country which has gone up to STA-1, which means that out of the dual-use technologies exports from the United States, about 90% of them can come to India without the need of any licensing at all. This is something that is dealt with by the Commerce Department of the United States, which means that India will be able to import technology. One of the basic fundamental reasons why India went in for the civilian nuclear deal with the United States, framework agreement signed in 2005 July, September 2008 we got a waiver from the NSG and the agreement with the United States, was that we wanted to be in a position to import import high technology and dual-use technology, which was denied to us. It was, of course, denied to us during the Cold War years, but even after that, it was denied to us, and it has been coming slowly to us. Now, from STA-2 to STA-1, this status, it's a huge jump. That means 90% of these items which were otherwise, and you know, all these procedures and processes are very long drawn and very time consuming. You have to go to the Congress, you have to go to different agencies, but right now India will be able to get all of that from there. Of course, meaning this is a recognition of India, as you mentioned yourself, that de jure India might not be a signatory, might not be a member of NSG, but de facto it has all the export control procedures that all the other countries are doing. So it is a recognition of the role that India is playing towards non-proliferation and promoting international security, and the United States wants to partner with it.
Sure.
But there is something in the United States for it also, because this would provide the United States to be able to expand its exports to India, which is something that it is looking at.
So it's a two-way street at the end of the day.
I think all international agreements, for them to be effective and for them to go forward, have to be a win-win proposition for both the parties. And in this case, we can see that it is a win-win proposition for the two countries.
All right. Let me bring in KP Nayar into the picture. Now, Mr. Nayar, you know, why was the exception made for India by the Trump administration? What, you know, back channel diplomacy at work, or what was it really?
There is no doubt at all that Indo-US relations are very robust and dynamic. But based on my long involvement in issues like this out of Washington, I want to make a few points. One is that America does not do anything for anybody else. If the United States administration, any administration takes a decision, it is for itself. So when the US does things like this, they are looking at greater arms purchases, US arms purchases by India, which in turn creates jobs in the United States. You know, Trump is now preparing for re-election. Before that, the November elections are there. It is critical that job creation is very critical for any administration. And, you know, United States did not become a great power by doing things for other countries. They became a great power by doing things for itself. My reading is that apart from the strength of Indo-US relations and the fact that the relations are expanding, the Americans have an eye on the new proposed purchase of American aircraft by India, the combat aircraft. You see, they lost to Rafale in the original 126 multi-role combat aircraft order because of something called ITAR, International Traffic in Arms Regulations. Because of ITAR, the Americans were not able to supply us the latest avionics for what the planes they were offering. That is what led to their elimination and a train of events which ultimately led to us buying Rafale aircraft. Now, the Americans don't want to lose out again. I mean, we are at an early stage for this combat aircraft. And they are, also, US laws are very complicated. ITAR is there, which is administered by the State Department. Then there is something called EAR, which is Export Administration Rules, which is administered by the Bureau of International Security of the Commerce Department. And these are all mandated by Congress, you see. So the Americans are, ITAR, it's not easy to change ITAR.
Right.
EAR is also very difficult. So they are trying to actually find a way out by upgrading us from STA-2 to STA-1 to see to what extent they can be competitive in making the bids for the 110 new planes that we are buying.
All right.
So it is not any act of munificence, you know. It is American interest. They are protecting their industry, they are protecting their jobs and trying to create more jobs. It's more American interest than anything that they are being nice to India or anything like that.
The ties between India and the United States are robust, is what Mr. Nayar is suggesting. But at the end of the day, this deal is pure, or this status is purely business, is also what he's suggesting at the end of the day. Yes, Mrs. Sajjanhar, you wanted to say
Yes,
something?
I just want to add, you know, as I mentioned right at the beginning, you know, there can never be a one-sided deal. So if there is in this deal something for the United States, let me also say that there is a great deal in it for India also, in terms of getting new technology, upgradation in terms of manufacturing more of the defense equipment in India, becoming a part of the value chain, becoming part of the supply chain. And also, if you remember, in 2005, what the Bush administration, what the United States had said, one of the objectives is to ensure that India emerges as a major global power.
Right.
So this is going to, and particularly this has become even more significant and relevant today with the rise of China.
All
and
right.
so having...
We'll talk about China in just a bit, but before that, this high technology that the ambassador is speaking about, Mr. Bansal, what is the kind of technology that we can get our hands on now, and how will it be useful to us?
See, there are 2-3 things which I wanted to say. What Mr. Nayar said, I tend to disagree with that, because permission to get high technology also facilitates India to go ahead with Make in India project, because a lot of technology is required for foreign investors to come and make these goods. Like 5th generation fighter aircraft. Now we recently Defense Minister said that we are out of the deal which we had with the Russians. Now FG, 5th generation fighter aircraft is something we can go in for a better types of fighter aircraft. There are a lot of other equipment like ships. Indigenization in armed forces is the major thrust areas, and if we have to indigenize, we need these technologies, especially as far as sensors and weapons are concerned, from US and Western countries. So we'll be getting them. The advantage is that in India's case, getting Western technology does not foreclose our options of getting that from Russia or other countries as well. We have been one of the very few countries, in fact our Navy has a very unique phenomena where we have integrated Western sensors with the so-called Soviet origin weapon systems. Now this is something very, very unique. Nowhere else in the world you will find that the Western sensors have been integrated with the Russian weapon systems. That we have done. So I think that advantage is there, and I think Indian industry in times to come will benefit immensely. As far as other issues is concerned, what will be the benefits? It may take a little time, because US procedures, laws, the way things move do take time. But what is more important is that the STA-1 status designation of India, I think it's more a political signaling than an immediate change. Change will come. Change has been coming as far as US posture towards India is concerned for past so many years, and it will keep coming. But what it indicates to the world is that United States considers India as a very, very important ally and is willing to make an exception. Now that's very important, that US is showing to the world that US is willing to make an exception for India as far as designation of this status is concerned.
Mr. Nayar, you had something to add to that, but also Alok Bansal is calling it political signaling. Is there a message in this to China?
While I am optimistic about Make in India program, especially in the defense sector, because that is one sector where there is a lot of possibility of domestic production. While I am optimistic about it, it is my opinion that United States will be the last country among the major arms producers to make in India. Russians will do it here. They already do in armored carrier vehicles and things like that. The Swedes will do it here. The French will do it here. But the Americans will not do it. Take it from me. And even that Lockheed deal and all that, after Trump became president, we had already worked quite a bit on that, about production of F-16s and all that. General Mattis rang us up and told us that the deal is off. Americans, take it from me, will not produce in India, but other countries will in defense technology. And China is not relevant to this particular thing, I think, no? Because the Indian defense trade, the US defense trade with India is independent of what the Chinese are doing. See, Americans want, in defense matters, the American priority is to have a buyer-seller relations.
But the political posturing cannot be ruled out is what Alok Bansal is suggesting. There is definitely a message there in that.
You see, political signals are good anyway, whether it is Obama or Trump. Political signals are coming all the time, you know. India is one country with which the United States has least problems. But we should not get carried away by these so-called signals, you know, because once it was said by Robin Raphael, the famous Robin Raphael, who was Assistant Secretary of State, that it's so easy to create a storm in New Delhi, you know. When Obama held the first state dinner, I think Ashok was there in Washington at that time, Obama held the first state dinner. You know, Americans are very good at making a lot out of nothing. So they made so much out of the fact that this was the first state dinner done by the Obama administration. And we easily get taken in by this, you know.
So at the end of the day, we should not be taken in by theatrics is what you're suggesting.
Yes,
we need to ensure that we put our best forward and be skeptical as well, because you don't know what's lurking around the corner. All right, Ambassador Sajjanhar, is the United States, the Trump administration, going to expect something in return from us as a result of giving us an exception and giving us this STA-1 status, maybe something with regards to Iran and Russia?
I don't think with regard to Iran or Russia, because I think what the United States wants from India, as has been mentioned earlier also, I think it wants to enhance its trade. It wants to expand its trade. But while doing that, let me also mention that if trade was the only issue, then why did it take such a long time to the United States to give this STA-1 status to India? It has taken such a long time because, you know, we have been able to bring our export control procedures up to the mark, because protection of the technology is also extremely significant, extremely important as far as the United States is concerned. It's not only trade, and it's not only trade at any cost. It is to ensure that their technology is also protected. And while hearing whatever has been said by Mr. Nayar, I think if it is under the Defense Trade and Technology Initiative, I'm sure there are things that are going to happen here. They might take some time, but you know, that could also be not so much because the United States doesn't want it, but because the Indian industry is not really ready for that. And you know, that is something that I would like to see, that although this enabling provision has been made, the fact that we can import all this technology, but how much of the technology can we integrate and can we utilize? I think that is going to be a question. But that notwithstanding, I think we'll be able to import technology, at least in terms of building spares and other things. So India will have the possibility of becoming a part of the value chain and the global chain, right, in terms of the big manufacture of the big ammunition and equipment. As far,
I'm sorry to cut you short, Ambassador, but Mr. Bansal has to be somewhere else. So let me get a quick closing comment in from him, and then I'll let him go, and then we can continue the debate here. Alok Bansal, does this also mean, just taking the discussion forward, to that the Indian diaspora has been at work in the United States, and this is a result of that as well?
See, as far as Indo-US relationship is concerned, diaspora has been a very, very important factor. As diaspora grew in strength, Indo-US relationship grew in strength. Today, Indian diaspora is even richer than the Jewish diaspora. And it was always believed that it is the Jewish diaspora which actually governed in US-Israel relations. Today, Indian diaspora has come of age. And I think that diaspora is actually extremely vibrant. And that is ensuring that Indo-US relationship is growing. That is one part, and that we cannot deny, that there is no doubt that Indo-US relationship has taken a new leaf ever since the diaspora has come of age. Actually, they are not politically active, they are financially active, they are very rich, everything is there. But as I said, this particular status, US has made an exception, And what Wilbur Ross says is very important. He says it will help the US manufacturers because they are obviously eyeing the largest defense market, which is India, but at the same time protecting their national security. So they are convinced that India's security, export control regimes are now in place and no way is their technology going to be compromised. As far as manufacturing is concerned, even if the US manufacturers not come, but there is possibility that certain technologies can be transferred to certain third country manufacturers. Like a lot of Israelis are willing to come and many of them have actually US technologies and they would like to invest here, or other third countries might come to invest. Of course, Lockheed Martin deal, officially we haven't heard from Lockheed Martin that they are not willing to do that. They said if they get an order, they would be willing to set up the production facility, and if they do set up, it will be a big thing for us.
Okay, all right. Alok Bansal, I know you have to be somewhere else. Thank you for joining us on the program and sharing your views with us. Let me continue the discussion with KP Nayar and Ashok Sajjanhar now. You know, Mr. Nayar, as far as India-US ties are concerned, where does this leave us now, and does the future look bright for India-US relationship?
Well, Indo-US relations are, as I said earlier, quite robust, and it is expanding. That doesn't mean there are no problem areas. Trade, for example, is a problem area and is likely to remain a problem area with the Trump administration's policies and all that. But certainly there is a greater convergence on many areas. For example, the vision on Indo-Pacific, even in defense related matters, joint efforts at disaster management. So there are many areas in which the relations are moving forward, and I expect that the relations will do well also because you see, apart from many countries invest only in the administration. We have invested heavily in the US Congress. I mean, the India caucus, both in the Senate and in the House of Representatives, it is the biggest caucus. It is bigger than the Israeli caucus. So, I mean, we are not dependent on, I mean, I'm putting it very bluntly, we are not dependent on President Trump's erratic behavior for Indo-US relations, because we have worked on this relationship since our nuclear test, you know. If the Trump administration is creating problems for the relationship, we have another way, you know, we can go through the Congress, we can go through the diaspora. So I would say, I wouldn't agree with Alok
Bansal, yeah.
in terms of what he said about the the Indian diaspora being richer than the Israeli diaspora, not the Israeli diaspora, Jewish diaspora. I mean, we can get nowhere near the Jewish diaspora in terms of
influence, yes,
wealth or influence. Wealth, certainly. I mean, they control the media, they control the banks, everything. But we are on a very good wicket in the United States.
Sure.
And we have the nuclear deal is proof that we can direct the relationship to a very large extent the way we want, because of our strategies.
Right. Closing comment from you, Ambassador, on the way forward for India-US relations.
The way forward for India-US relations, you know, we are going to have the 2+2 dialogue in another exactly a month on the 6th of September.
Yes, yeah.
So I think that the whole issue is going to be on the table, and how to further strengthen our relations. Of course, there have been discussions that have been going on now as far as signing of COMCASA is concerned, the Communications Compatibility and Security Agreement, or signing of the BECA. So that will, the Basic Exchange Cooperation Agreement. Signing of these two agreements will definitely bring the two countries together, and it will also encourage the United States defense producers to be able to send their, more sophisticated armaments and equipment to India.
Sure.
I think as far as you had mentioned about Russia and Iran, those are issues, I think by and large we have been able to sort them out, whether it is the import of S-400 ballistic missile defense system from Russia, or it is Chabahar, or to a very significant extent, the import of oil from Iran.
Right.
But that having been there, you know, I'd like to make two other points. Number one, we see today, you know, in 2018, it is just about 20 years after India's nuclear test. and the harshest sanctions from the United States were imposed on India.
Yeah.
But within 20 years, you see what a remarkable turnaround has taken place.
Right.
The second point I would like to make is that there is definitely a China angle involved. It might not be obvious, it might not be up there in front, but definitely the message that goes, because what China had been doing is not admit India into NSG so that it will not be able to take benefit and advantage. The United States has jumped over this and has decided to give a waiver to India, that the only country which does not is not a member of NSG but still is a part of STA-1.
Right. All right, on that note then, we'll call it a wrap on this edition of India's World. Thank you to my guests for joining me on the program and putting things into perspective for us. We can get your suggestions as well. Do send them to us. Our email ID is indiasworld.feedback@gmail.com. You can also tweet to us using our Twitter handles at FRP09 and at Rajya Sabha TV. That's it from me. See you again next time.